So what's the theme? What are we talking about? Yes, of course, we're taking a class. What have we been talking about?
Is your soil fruitful?
Is your soil?
I keep saying soil. I keep saying soil.
Not is your soil, but is your soil fruitful? Are you producing fruits, right? So that's based on what chapter of the Bible? Matthew chapter 13. That's what we're talking about. Now, we're talking about a parable that's given by our Lord and our Savior Jesus Christ. What was the parable about?
Farmer and seeds.
Something seed, something farmer, something fruit. So that's established. Can somebody elaborate? Yes, sir.
It was about like people will have different paths, and some people will have interaction with religion in a certain way, but it's going to be one type of way which will lead them to salvation.
Okay. More about the parable. At this point. That's more of the explanation, which is good, but I'm interested in the parable. What was the parable about? Yes, ma'am.
There was a farmer and he went out to the land and he threw seeds.
Okay.
And then there landed 4 bits.
Yes.
One on the sidewalk, but the person came and ate it. And then one on a rock, which it kind of sprang out really fast, but then it had no roots.
Very good.
So then it just fell. And then one on thorns, so it grew with the thorns, so it was never fruitful.
Okay.
And then one on good soil.
So there's 4 type of places where the seeds fell on, right? The first one is the footpath. That's the one we're going to look at today, right? That's where like people are walking around, whatever. So the seed never got a chance to blossom. Instead, the seed was just there, and then the birds came and took it away, right? The second one is the one on the rock with like a layer of soil on top of it. So it's enough soil that the seed can start to grow, but again, it can never produce fruits because it never had roots. So when the sun came out, it dried up and died away. The third type of seeds that are planted fell on the thorns, right? So they grew like regular plants, and you think they're doing well, but because the thorns are always pulling them back, they can never truly produce fruits. And of course, the fourth type of soil is the soil that we hope to have, and that is the soil of that was able to produce 30, 60, 100 fruits once the farmer was able to farm the seed in there. So these are this is the allegory, or this is the parable that Christ was teaching about. How does that relate with the gospel? What does this represent? So this is a representation, some metaphors, some of it, right? So like, what is it representing? What's the farmer representing?
God.
Okay, God. Okay. What's not just God, but we said it is the disciples, like the teaching of the church, right? It is our means of receiving the true teachings of Christ. What's the seed?
Salvation.
It's the message. What is the message?
Salvation.
Salvation. This is what we were talking about last week, right? Can somebody recap what we were talking about last week? Last week.
We went downstairs.
We went downstairs, life changed forever.
Now we talked about everything that we do in our Christianity does not revolve around salvation. We're doing it wrong.
Right, we're doing it. We missed the point. Like we've completely missed the point of Christianity, right? Christianity has turned into something very ugly of like, let me try to avoid sin. Let me try to like not do this. Let me try to, and even like the good things, right? Like let me go to church. Like Christianity is not about going to church. Yes, I said it. Yes, I said it. It's not even about like, let me read my Bible. This is not the point. The centerpiece of Christianity is on what? Salvation. It's the fact that my Lord and my Savior, Jesus Christ, has died for me, like for me personally, right? If I miss this concept, if I'm not taking the time to think about it, I miss the concept of Christianity. And most of the time, we wonder why we can't produce the type of fruits that we want to see. We wonder why we're not the type of Christians that we hope to be. Why? Because we never sit down and think about my King, my Lord, my God has died for me on the cross for my sins. That is amazing. There is no greater love than this, right? And this is the thing. We've got to take the time to really think about this. Like, my King, Jesus Christ, was on the cross and he died for me. I gotta take at least like 30 seconds a day to think about that. And that love that he showed me. He proved his love, right? If there's anybody who's questioning the love that God has for us, just think about Golgotha. Think about Calvary. Think about the cross, right? He showed it he proved it to us. The question is, how can we show God that we love him? Right? So now that becomes an easier question of like, what should I do or what should I not do, becomes an easier question when I'm centered around the cross. Because the cross is everything. That's everything. But if we take the cross out and we're just like, okay, Christianity, I gotta do kadasi, and then like you're not gonna get the point. Every single Sunday, it's like a dry thing, right? Every single time you go up and even take Holy Communion, even read the Bible, it's gonna become a dry, like ritualistic type of religion that is not supposed to be. It's supposed to be very much alive, very much like present in our life every single day, very much active, very much relevant in our life. And that can only happen if I'm constantly thinking about the love that Christ has for me. And I can't stress enough the point of taking like a step back and thinking about the stuff, right? Like, read it, yes, learn about it, yes, but just think about it. Like, okay, God, like, yes, it's you, you know, and just talk to him. Sometimes we make prayer like harder than it needs to be. Yes, there's like formal prayer that we do, like, okay, let me get ready, and then, you know, start praying, right? So that's like the formal one. And then don't forget, he's also your father. So like, Dad, I love you, you know, like, thank you. Like, that's a prayer. You don't have to like all the time, you know, it's good to do like the formal prayers or whatever. Some people are like, I do good. Like, I see like little like 10-year-old kids, you know, like when they're told to pray, like, you know, I do good. Because like they learn good, they want to use that. It's cute, like it's adorable, do it, right? And like we've learned, like deacons, you've learned like all different type of prayers, whatnot. Like that's good. It's good. It's a good prayer. I'm not whatever. But don't forget, he's also your father. And sometimes, like every time you go up to your dad, you're not like, Dad, the one that I completely love, and like you don't talk to your dad that way, right? What's up? What's good? You know what I mean? Like, so be comfortable enough to talk to your father sometimes. Don't get it wrong. Don't disrespect him. Love him. Have that relationship with him. But like sometimes, just innocently remember that you're a kid. Like, I love you, Jesus. Like, I love you. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So sometimes we gotta learn. Just think about it. Like, think about the relationship. We're building a relationship, right? Yes, we're appearing before a king, but we're also appearing before our Father. So if we remember that, you're extremely late.
Yeah, and he's eating.
Yeah. You just didn't even care.
Yeah.
Didn't apologize.
God, let me see that.
We're losing
Sit on the floor.
We're losing viewers.
I'm going.
This is what you
That's actually great.
That's disrespectful.
He brought a big chair.
You guys see right there.
No. Let him sit there. So we continue our.
Alright, let's continue. Let's continue.
Come on. He's late, so.
Guys, yeah. And now who's that extra?
We're right now.
I'm being
We don't have people that came on.
We went from 7 to 5.
All of us.
That's mine. He knows the deal. He knows the deal. Alright, so since I'm in a very good mood, guess what? You have pop quiz. Everybody take your pop quiz.
Finish it already? You answered the whole thing.
Nah, do it again. It's fine. It's okay.
Do you want to take
From the
the
paper.
When he answered the whole thing.
You said
Okay,
take
the
the
way
pop
you
quiz. She said, hey, you guys get 5 minutes. Come on, everybody.
We finished it, we
We said it, right? If you got that wrong, I'm worried, right? So it's the salvation. It is the gospel. It is the heartbeat of Christianity. Like a lot of times when we talk about the heartbeat of Christianity, again, we get it wrong. We get it wrong. And it's important to get it right. The heartbeat of Christianity, the reason why we're Christians is centered around the death and resurrection of Christ. It's about salvation. It's the fact that we're saved. That is the message of Christianity. If you guys watch like a lot of TVs, They talk about like
TVs.
Multiple TVs.
whoever. If you guys watch a lot of shows, they talk about like all religions essentially teach the same thing, which is about being good and doing good and all this stuff. That's not true, right? Christianity teaches something completely different that nobody else teaches, right? It's the fact that we've been saved even though we weren't worthy. That's the point of Christianity, accepting that. Like, we weren't deserving of his love and his grace, yet he gave it to us. That's the concept of Christianity. It's not about doing good. Yes, that's the component, but what brings everything in the center is, at the end of the day, of course, the salvation story. What does the seed tell us about God? It tells us about his love. What does the seed falling on the footpath represent? It represents
The path of sins, I guess. Is it the path? Would it be the path of like sinning?
right.
Going away from God?
It represents, and we talked about this the first week, and we're going to talk about it again today in depth, right? But generally, it talks about those who don't understand the salvation story. And we talked about it in the second week. I wanted to see, like, kind of poke at you guys and see if you remember that. But we're going to talk about it in detail today, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. So, the seed, what's the question?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
We're going to talk about it. Yeah, we're going to get to it today. It's okay. The seed, are you guys with me? So our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ, died, right? His death is not the beginning of the story. It's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of the story. Because, again, the concept of Christianity is about the resurrection. There's no resurrection without the death, but our victory is on the resurrection, right? So what happened afterwards? Well, his disciples, those who loved him, who understood this gospel, went around the world preaching this so that people can hear this wonderful good news. What is the meaning of salvation, gospel, by the way? When we talk about gospel, you just said it, it's the good news, right? So when we talk about like 4 gospels, really what we're saying is the 4 good news. It's the good news that our Lord and our Savior Jesus Christ has defeated death. It is that good news that the disciples went around in the 4 corners of the world preaching it so people understand it. What are they representing? What are they representing? In the allegory or in the parable? Not the seed, the farmer. They're the farmer, right? So they're going around taking the salvation story and they're scattering it across the world, right? So they're the farmers, right? Not only that, and here's like we talk about this a lot, and I'm going to talk about it again. We know, like we always say, why did God come to this world? To die for our sins, right? That's 50% of the answer. What's the other 50? We've talked about this before. Like
Shows love.
to show his love, all that is connected with like his death and resurrection. Like why did he come to this world? Yes, sir.
To open the door for us, so
A little bit more.
so we could like have a chance at
To be an
salvation.
More. Yeah.
He wanted to live his life.
More.
He wanted to like show
More.
us.
Yeah. Okay.
He gave up.
Like, it's not gonna happen. Like, I got this one. Hello. There's a seat right there. Welcome.
Solar.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
You can get there.
You ain't even see. Nope. Alright, you guys with me? You guys with me?
Yup.
So here's the thing. 50% of the answer is God died for me for my sins. Yes, 50%. The other 50% is he died or he came to this world to establish a church. Right? To establish a church. How do we know that?
Because he stayed after.
He stayed afterwards. If the only reason why he came to this world was to die for us, he would have died, resurrected, and been like, peace, and left, right? Like, that would have been it. That would have been the end of the story. But that's not what happened. He stayed another 40 days with the disciples, teaching them accordingly how to worship, how to do everything. Most of the time when we talk about worship, and I know I'm going off tangent here, but this is important. We talk about, like, especially in the Western world, we talk about, like, this makes me happy, right? Like, when we think about worship, like, come to church or whatever, yeah, this makes me feel good, right? Okay, what about God? Like, is the worship that we're offering him something that pleases him? That's a very good question. Does he care? Yes, evidently, because he spent 40 days teaching the disciples exactly what to do. When Moses went to Mount Sinai, right, God showed him, make a tabernacle, a place of worship, according to the copy of the heavenly sanctuary, the heavenly worship place. He showed him how the angels worship him. He showed him how like it's done in the kingdom of heaven, which is the perfect as in like the absolute standard of how we should worship, right? Like, that's how it should be, right? So he showed it to him. He said, make a replica, a copy of it here on earth, right? He said, this is how I'm pleased. So you want to give a gift to your mom? You don't give her something you want. You know? You give her something that makes her happy. Whatever that is, right? Whenever you exchange a gift, the same thing. Worship is a way, yes, it's a two-way relationship. Yes, it's something for me as well. But if we know that God is happy, again, God has done something for us. Like he loved us. And this is the time where we're like, thank you. In order to tell him exactly like how we feel about him, right? This is the way that we want, whatever we do is not going to be sufficient for God. Whatever we do is never going to be sufficient to the crucifixion. But we want to show him how much we love him. So it has to be something that he's pleased with. It has to be something he's pleased with. So then, that's why he was like, I'm going to tell you exactly what pleases me. I want you to worship like this. I want you to pray like this. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. So he spent 40 days in this world with the disciples, with the farmers, teaching them how to farm. Again, I'm getting into too many things, but at the end of the gospel, this is what he was talking to Peter about. I'm going to teach you how to farm. You're talking about farming, what is it?
Fishing.
Fishing, yeah. He was like, you talking about fish? No, I'm going to tell you how to fish for humans. Like getting them into the church. Exactly how to do it. Because I'm very particular. And I want things in like a certain way. Right? And that was the teaching of Christ. Coming back to this. The teachings of the church, like where they teach about the gospel and the message, is within the church. It's buried within the church. And that's what was spent for 40 days doing. Right? Making sure that the seed, like people have access to the seed. And they created this generator that's able to output so many seeds to the world. Right? And that's called the church. That's called Kadase. That's what it is. When we go to Kadase, we're there like receiving seed after seed after seed. Like, whoa, you know? So that's the thing. Like, if we never go to church, we'll never have the seed. Why? Because that's where we can get it. Now the question is, what have we done with the seed? Remember, the goal is we need fruits. Like the point is not to receive the seed. It means nothing. Like when you think about lottery, right? If you wanted $1 million, you're not interested in the $1 million. We think we are, but we're not. We're interested about what that $1 million can do for us. Right? We're really interested about the big house. We're really interested about the cars, the food, the whatever we want to do. I just care about the food. Right? So like, what we're interested in is what it can do for us. The same thing, when we go to Kadase, yeah, just standing there for 3 hours maybe seem like whatever, but we're interested in what that relationship could do for me afterwards. If it's not bringing any fruits, there's a problem, and that's why we're having this class. If you going to church and you praying and you doing all this stuff, it's like, okay, like I don't get the point, there's a problem. That's why we're having this class, right? At the end of the day, when we go to church, when we are praying, we should see something at the end of it. What are we going to see? That's a different class. We're going to have that class like a few weeks from now. But right now we're talking about the soil. Like, how's our heart? Like, are we even ready to accept the seed? Right? Like, are we ready? No. Well, I mean, let's look. So, again, the hearts of the people who have chosen. So, the type of seed that we're looking at today is the first type. Which is the first type?
The one that goes on the
footpath, right? So it's the one where, like, if you could imagine a footpath is like, if there's I don't know how many people grew up in Gata. We have a living example of a farmer right there. He knows exactly what it is. Obviously. That's why he's embarrassed. He's covering his hands. He doesn't want to do that was good. Did you see? Did you see the angle? He knows how to do it. So, like, when you go to the farm, right?
Hello.
Hello, hello. Oh, wow, welcome. Black Panther. He just walked in. Like, I wasn't gonna put to the game. Alright,
I think this is somewhere.
alright, you guys ready? I'm sorry, let me get my thoughts. So the type of soil that we're talking about is the one that fell on the footpath, right? So as you guys remember, what Christ taught us about this area was, this is the one where, well, number one, in the parable, so there's a farm. When you throw the seed, you can't guarantee that this is gonna fall exactly at the location that you want, right? Because you grab like a lot and then you kind of like, because you gotta go with speed and everything like that, right? So when you're doing that, right next to the farm, there's like a footpath where you go, like on the left side there's some stuff, on the right side there's some stuff, and then you're kind of walking in between, and you're like, you know, you're like, whatever, with the yeah, you know.
Oh, you've been, right?
No, that's what no lie. So when you do that, some of the seeds will fall on the footpath, right? That's where people are walking. You see what I'm saying? So number one, like, because people are walking on top of the seed, it's never gonna get a chance to be cultivated and taken care of and whatnot. So the seed is never gonna like get buried, right? And that's how like the seed is gonna blossom. So that's never gonna happen. So the seed is exposed everywhere. So what can happen is the birds come and they take it away. Makes sense. Because it was never meant to be for farming. That land, that soil, yeah, it's soil. It's soil. But it was never meant to be for farming. It was meant to be for walking. Not every soil is meant to be for that. So Christ said, these people represent the people who don't understand the gospel. Let's be clear. We're not talking about Christianity in terms of people who believe or who don't believe. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people who believe, but yet are unable to produce fruits. They're the people who have received salvation or who have heard about the gospel, but are unable to produce fruits. The question is why? Is that us? We don't care about the rest of the people, but is that us? Are we the first type of soil? Well, let's see. Let's see. So the footpath represents this world. Specifically, it represents those who have settled in this world, who have decided to make this world their place. Something very interesting happens in Genesis chapter 4. It's talking about the story of Cain and Abel, right? And right after Cain kills Abel, it says Cain went and he settled somewhere. He uses that word very effectively, settled. And if you look at the descendants of Cain and the descendants of Seth, you notice that in the region of Cain, they have settled in this world. And then you look at the life of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all of them, they were nomads. Like they were walking around, like they would sit one place and they never really had a house. They would have tents, like movable tents, right? It wasn't like they couldn't make a permanent house. Like they would sit here, then they would move, and then they would move, and then they would move. Why? They never wanted to settle. That symbolized at the time, like they had hope. God told Adam, I'll come and I'll rescue you. So Adam was like, I'll wait. Like, yeah, I have to be on this path, like towards the kingdom of heaven. I have to be here, so I'll wait for you, right? What Cain did was like, no, I'll sit down and make my house here. It's like going in the middle of like the intersection and saying, I'll build a house around here, man. Like sometimes you have to cross it, right? Sometimes you have to cross it, which is fine. It's a footpath. That's the point. You're supposed to cross it. But if you just settle and be like, okay, I'm here, you're gonna get hit by a car. It's not meant for a permanent living. And that's what Cain did. He settled in this world through his sins. Why? Because it's not that he didn't know about God. It's not like he didn't know what he was doing. It's the fact that he settled in this world. He became of the world. Forgetting that he was here only for a few periods. This world was meant to be the conduit which gets us into the kingdom of heaven. It's a pathway. We become victims of the first type of soil whenever we settle and we stop kind of pushing forward for the kingdom of heaven. And instead, we become so consumed by this world, we've forgotten about the kingdom of heaven. We can keep coming to church. Again, it's not about non-believers and believers. It's about the fact that we've been consumed, swallowed by this world, that we've completely neglected our responsibility to the kingdom of heaven. So all the other things that we're doing is just ritual. And I always say, sometimes we get in the business of going to church for insurance purposes. Right? And what that means is, I'll live my life any way I want to. Whatever I want, right? But I will go to church. Why? Because on the kingdom of, on Judgment Day, God, I went to church. Right? It's an insurance thing. Like just to get our, like, you know, like for our conscience. Like, successful career, check. Family man, check. This, check. Go to church, check. I'm good. Not anything like really deep, like challenging my spiritual life, right? Like an athlete, it's not like he's not just running to be like, I ran a mile today. Like that's not the goal of an athlete. It's to say like, I improved from yesterday, I'm getting better. Like he has a goal, like there's somewhere that he wants to get, right? That's like the clearly not for me, but like, you know, we're athletes, like this guy. So yeah, goal, you have a goal every single time. You're running every single time you're doing something, you're trying to accomplish something. That's why athletes are athletes, right? In our spiritual life, we have to have a goal. Like, where are we going? How fast are we running? Where were we at last year? Where are we at now? Like, what's wrong? Am I falling behind? Am I going forward? If I'm not doing that, Christianity has become an insurance. Just so, like, my conscience doesn't kill me, like, alive. Like, I'm going to keep, like, doing the prayer thing and, like, going to church, whatnot. But really, we're consumed by the world. That is a problem. That is a problem. I want to take a minute to talk about, what's today, by the way, fasting. What's today? Mezagwu is a very interesting character. Most of us kind of know like the first half of his life. We don't know about the latter half. Somebody said something very intriguing to me, right? If you notice, most of the people within the Bible, their names have been changed. Like Paul, what was his name before? Saul, right? What was the name of like, I was like, wait. Even Jacob, his name was changed to Israel, right? And then we have like Maria Magdalene. She was known as a prostitute. She was a prostitute, right? But we don't call her, the prostitute. We say Maria Magdalene, right? Mezagwu, that's not his name, that's an adjective. He's sick. He was healed, but yet we still call him Mezagwu. We still refer to him as the sick one. Why? Why? I thought it was very interesting. What's the story of Mezagwu? Just recap.
There was a guy that's been...
Quick.
There's a guy that's been in bed for 38 years. He was lame, he couldn't move, he had nobody to help him.
Slow down a little. There was a guy, he died, he killed him.
So there was a pond where an angel comes down, and once the angel comes down, like it was surrounded by sick people, and whoever is the first one to come in, they will be healed. And you know, he had nobody to help him, nobody to do anything to him. So he was there for 38 years, just watching the angel come up and down.
He's paralyzed.
Yeah. And that's what happened. And Jesus Christ came up to him and he asked him, like, do you want to get well? And he said yes. He said
what time?
Yes. Do you want to get well?
He said, you want to be saved.
Yeah.
You want to get better.
Yeah.
You want to heal. This is what Jesus said to the guy who's been sick 38 years. Like, you want to get better? Right? Like, imagine, again, like, when you read the Bible, imagine you were there. Imagine you were, like, right next to the situation. Imagine that was you.
It's exactly.
Right? So you got the, like, really, like, picture it. Like, he's sick for 38 years, like, can't move. Like, hey, do you want to get better? Right? This was happening. Go ahead.
And he asked him, like, he said yes. He asked him to, pick up your mat and go, and immediately he was able to get up and carry his mat.
Okay, before he left, what did he tell him? There's a lot of things we can learn about this.
He said, don't tell
this to anybody.
Yeah.
What did he do?
He told
everybody. That man right there, right? You know what he did at the end? That's the thing that always gets to me. What did he do at the end? Do you guys know? He was the person to go and he was like, this man, he committed blasphemy. On the Sabbath, he healed me. He healed me. And then he slapped him. Slapped Jesus. Like for healing him. This is everything, every time I think about this. The reason
Didn't Christ say something here before? So after he healed him, he said like, you have to go. He said something like reminding him, don't do it again or something like that.
That's like right when he was healing him. I'm saying at the time of the crucifixion, what he said was, are you guys with me? They needed like eyewitness people to say like how Christ had blasphemed or did something wrong. So he went and he was like, yeah, this is the man. He should be crucified. He healed me on the Sabbath. And he slapped him. That story is our story. That is our story. Because again, it's not like he just healed him. It's not just he healed him. It's that he asked his permission. He asked his permission. And like me and this guy, we were talking about it before. Even the whole thing of like pick up your mat and walk away. Like think what would have happened if like he didn't, right? Like if he just like left. If the guy was like excited he was healed or whatever, he went, right? You know what he would have probably said? Somebody would have took the mat, right? It was like, oh no, he just wanted to take my mat. He didn't want to heal me. You know, he would have blamed everything on Jesus if something was to happen. Now the point is this. This is our story. We ask God to heal us all the time. But the way he heals us may not be according to our will. Right? So we blame, how dare you? How dare you do this? So are we really interested in the kingdom of heaven? Like, how bad do we want it? Right? Mez'agu wasn't all about the kingdom of heaven. He had like alternative motives. Like if you see his complaint, like he lists out like, for 38 years I had no friends, I had no family. He wanted acceptance, right? He was consumed by the world, and what was really intriguing to him was friends, like to be around people, to be accepted. So he took that opportunity to be like, yeah, let me be with the rest of the crew who hates this one guy. It wasn't all about Jesus. It was all about acceptance. At the moment, Jesus was right there. So I'll be with you right now. You walk away, that's fine. I'll be with whoever like is doing whatever. So he's committed not to Christ, but to this world. He's of the world, like Cain. He's of the world. What are the things that make us be like whatever to Christ about? Is Christ number one in our life? And here's a simple question. Is salvation the most important concept for you? Answer it again. It's as simple. It's not like a trick question, like aha. You know, like no. It's a simple question. I have no doubt in here, most of you guys, if not all, will answer yes. Is salvation the most important concept for you? Do your actions reflect that? Now that's a tough question. If salvation is the most important thing for me, what am I doing to reflect that? What, like my actions? I'm not talking about like I really think about it. I really want salvation. Like you don't understand. Like I really, really want it. I'm talking about actions wise. For example, imagine like I'll tell you guys a story. True story. In undergrad, oh my gosh, that was a long time. All right, last week. So there was a chemistry. What?
Keep going.
Oh, okay. Chemistry class. I remember. I used to go like I was the guy that everybody would hate, right? I was like, hey, professor, how? You know, I would go and ask questions that I already knew the answers to. Like, I'm serious. Like, I would go like, hey, what is this? Wow. You know, like, so. I know. Wow. Because I wanted to show my professor, like, I'm in it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in this class. Like, I'm really, like, remember me, right? Oh, laugh for now. I didn't finish my story. Laugh. Go ahead. It doesn't matter. What happened is, on my final, like I didn't do as hot as I thought, and I remember. And I got for the final, I got a 92%. Not on the exam, but like my final grade. Right. What was reaching shit? Let's stop for you for a second. So I got a 92%. I remember a friend of mine. We were in the same class. Never did anything. He got a 93. But he got an A-. I got an A. For participation, he gave me like 120%. I remember that. Why? Because he saw the effort. Like I was really about the class. Like I was serious. I was like, I'm about to, and then I ended up getting I'm gonna show off a little bit. I ended up getting a paid internship that I got credit for. After he personally emailed me and said, I want you to come and work for me, and I got a paid internship that I got credit for. How many people could say that? What about you?
I'm about to start asking questions. The answers I don't know.
So the point is, like, your professor needs to see that your actions, like if your teacher sees that your actions reflect that you want it, they help you out a lot of times. Like, here's free advice. Trust me, I've seen this a lot, right? The same thing. If we're like serious about like school or work or whatever, like our boss wants to see that we put in effort, right? Like our teachers, our professors, whatever. Think about your relationship. Like, whatever, right? So like if you're in a relationship, then you see that if the more like thing that you're putting into it, the other person's like, okay, this person is serious. If you're just going around doing whatever, like never calling a person, I love you, trust me. I know a guy who said, for real, I'm okay with talking to you once a week. He told this to the girl. Let's just say they're no longer together. Right? Like, guys, don't do that. Great advice, right? Like, you can't say that and then think everything is, and then you propose to her.
What'd she say?
What do you think?
Why?
So that really, like, that it doesn't work out like that, right? Like, that's not, you don't want to lead in like that. Like, come on now, we could only talk once a week. What do you say? You know what I mean? That's not a good. Right? If you're serious about the other person, show them through your actions, right? Don't just talk it. Like, show through your actions how you feel about the person. Right? The same thing with God. Like, we tell him, oh, salvation is the most important thing, whatever. So what have you done? Your actions. I'm talking about actions. What have you done to reflect that? What have you done personally? And then the other question related with this is, think about your New Year resolutions for 2018. Write 5 things down. Honest. Don't change them right now. Like, everybody had a New Year resolution, right? Everybody had one.
I'm still working.
Everybody had. Write your New Year resolution down. Write it down. Don't change it. I'll buy what was the right.
We still have the email.
So you don't.
Can I read it?
People will laugh.
Can I read it?
Not a two. On the marathon.
That's a marathon.
Why
are we doing?
It's not bad.
Huh?
I was like,
You're working your way up to that, right?
It's a 1 mile.
I do it every year.
Oh, it's not.
It's one of those like joke about it with your friends because you're not gonna keep it.
All right, you guys.
You don't keep running down.
All right, you guys ready? You guys ready? All right. So, like, this is like for you. It's not whatever. It's not meant to like make you feel any way. Anything on your resolution related with salvation? That's a very important question, right? Why is it not like the first thing in our minds when we wake up? The first thing when we wake up, like, if we say salvation is like a must, like I have to have salvation, what are we doing to get there? Right? Like, if you have an exam coming up, like finals, what do you say? I'm not playing around. You shut off, like, people turn off Facebook, whatever. No, I'm not playing yet. I got finals. I got finals. Like, people are serious about finals. I got finals, right? Like, it's serious. You know, like, yeah, whatever, right? How serious are we about salvation? Salvation, I got salvation. You know, like, it's the other way. Like, finals, I got finals, right? Salvation, I got salvation. You know? Like, we're so relaxed about it. Like, yeah, right? Like, it's nice to work for it, but it's not there. It's not number one. Are we consumed by the world? Are we consumed by the world? Imagine how you would act if you got an F, like on your final grade. Like an F, like you saw F, failure. Right? Or you were like fired from your job. Like those of you who have one. Right? Imagine how you feel, like if you walked in and you said you have no more job. Imagine you walked in and then like your house was evicted. You don't have a house, like right there. How would you feel? How would you react? How do we react when we away from God? Like, how do we react? Is it the same way?
No.
One thing that I never will ever forget. We were talking about service and serving God and what it meant to serve God, right? I was talking about like if you're late, if you're like 10 minutes late to your workplace, you gotta call in, right? Hey, I'm sorry, I'm running late. There's traffic, whatever. I'm feeling sick. Like you know, and then like you got to talk to your boss. You can't just like not come in, right? What about God? What about Sundays? Like it happens, you know. There's some days like where you can't make it. I'm not saying that's okay, but do we check in? Like God, I'm so sorry I couldn't make it today because of this. I know it's not an excuse, but you like I will try. I'll do my best to come in. Or is it like another Sunday? Like, why is our attitude different when it comes to God if we're serious about salvation? Why is it so much so that in the world we're consumed by, we put in all our energy, we put in everything that we can possibly do to make sure that we don't fail in life, but when it comes to salvation, but no, salvation is the most important thing for me. But in terms of our actions, does nothing to reflect that. How does that work? How does that work? It's a question. This is not blame, whatever. It's a question, and it's something that we have to take time to think about. We have to reflect on it. That's our spiritual life. If we're serious about it, let's be serious about it. Let's be serious about it. And God doesn't want like the whole thing. He wants mustard seed. He wants something to bless, right? Like something. You got to give him something. If you give him a drop of water, he'll give you the ocean. That's the type of God that we have. We don't even have a drop of water. We're demanding everything. That's the problem. If we go up to God empty and saying, God, I want everything, I'm not going to work for it, I'm not going to whatever, like, how does that work? We've got to be, if we're committed, we got to be committed all the way. We can't just be on the footpath. Like, this world is going to pass away. It's a conduit, it's going to pass away. If we put in all our energy, everything that we have in this world, then we miss the target. That seed, that salvation, will never turn into fruits. We'll never see the birth. We could keep coming to church, we could keep praying, but if we're not invested 100%, we're going to miss it. So, what about birds? Like, in the parable, it talks about birds. Like, what do the birds symbolize? Simply put, things that are bad, things that are good. They're distractions, right? So birds are anything that takes you away from the focus of salvation. Birds are anything that takes you away from fully committing to God. Birds are the things, the gates that prevent you from really understanding the salvation. Let's look at them. I don't want to spend too much time on the bad, because I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, right? Like, bad is bad, don't do bad things. That's the idea. Honestly, and I think this is like a mature group that we could talk about this. God doesn't really care about whether you sin or not. You know that, right? He cares about your attitude towards sin. He knows you're gonna fall. It's like if a little kid, he picks up like a glass or something, and he breaks it, right? You as an adult, are you gonna, like, this is really bad. I tried. Alright, we good? A second. What was I saying? He cares about the attitude. Alright, okay, so here's the thing, like a little kid, right? He goes around, he picks up a glass, he drops it, right? You as the parent, you pretend like, or like a caregiver, whatever, you pretend like you're mad, right? Like, oh my gosh, you broke the glass on tillage. You know, like, cause you gotta teach him discipline. Are you really angry? Like a 4-year-old kid dropped the glass? No.
Is that my glass?
Like, yes. You're more worried that the kid is gonna hurt himself. Right? Of anything else.
Well,
I don't know. No, seriously. Or like a kid, like you know, most of the time they make sure that they're holding their hand or whatever, especially when they cross the street. Why? Because if they just run, what can happen? They can get in an accident, right? So the parent, like even if he gets mad, he's more worried that you're gonna fall rather than anything, right? But if the kid gets up, like especially if he's old enough to talk back to the parents and be like, "Who the heck are you, man?"
Oh no.
Right? Like so what? Like so what? I didn't listen to your rules. You see the attitude? You see the attitude? You see the difference? Some of the people, like in this world, don't care about the sin. Not that they don't care about it, the attitude is completely off. So what? Like, I'm not that bad. Like, it's not that wrong. Like, everybody does it. That's the wrong attitude. If that's your attitude about sin, then you got a real big problem. There's no way you will produce fruits like that. Right? Why? Because every sin is an opportunity to get you away from God. What God wants is for you to fight every single day. To get away from it. Whether you fall or not, really is not the most important thing. The most important thing is you keep fighting for righteousness. Keep seeking God. Like, keep running towards Him. Keep getting close to Him. That's what He wants to see. He can care less what you do. He cares about your attitude. He cares about your heart. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. Because it's obvious. Most of us in this room, we're here because we're trying to get away from that world to begin with, right? Like, truthfully, we're here because we want something. We could have been sleeping, we could have been doing whatever. We're here because we're seeking righteousness and trying to avoid wickedness. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. But I do want to talk a little bit about the second part. Things that are good. Another verse that always stands out to me is in the book of Joshua chapter 1. When God is talking to Joshua, Joshua is getting ready to take the place of Moses, the great Moses, right? What did he tell him? Do you guys remember his word? What did God tell him? Don't go to the left. Don't go to the right. Go straight. Left symbolizes, obviously, evil. He said, don't go to the right. Why? That symbolizes good. Why? Something Father Anthony said. If the devil can't make you bad, he makes you good.
What? Oh, because then you'll become bad through your good thing. Like, I guess I
We know who goes to Coptic church. Half of the class was like, yeah, all the really young guys were like, what? So here's the thing, right? The devil, he's gonna try to pull you this way. And you keep like, no, right? Resisting, like, no, I'm gonna do good, right? And he's like, okay, go away. And then what he wants to do is to make you fall. Either pulling you or pushing you, it doesn't matter. So then you're like, I'm gonna do good. He's like, okay, and then he's gonna push you that way. You're gonna fall, not even recognize it. Now here's the thing. If somebody is like around drugs and like they drop out of school, like their career's not whatever, everyone around them will be like alarms everywhere, right? Parents are gonna go mad, like people are gonna come, they're gonna get that crazy uncle to come and talk to you, like, you know what I mean? Like everybody, like, oh my gosh, my whatever, right? So it's a thing, it becomes a thing. If the kid is doing great at school, great with career, like is a role model for everything, but his prayer life is weak, who's gonna talk to him?
If his what life?
His prayer life. Right? If he misses a few Sundays because of work, oh no, somebody is around. Right? Get a spot. If we happen to like, if our career is like growing, it's getting in the way of the church, first thing to go is the church. But we're very serious about salvation. Does that work? No. Clearly we're being consumed by the world. We're so focused. Family. Family is like family, right? That's the big thing. Oh, like mom asked me something, I gotta do it. Like my uncle, like I gotta do something for this and that and this and that. Great. Like clearly I'm doing the right thing, what God wants me to do, because this is what, like, family is family. But what about God? What about God? See, like for me, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. But the one thing that I claim to be serious about, I'm not there for. The one thing that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give my entire life. This is it. This is the most important thing for me. But yet I can't dedicate my life to it. How serious are we about salvation? That is the birds that he's talking about. Because we're claiming that we're very serious about salvation, but there's so many distractions in this world. And they're not just distractions. We don't get it. We don't understand salvation. We don't understand what Christianity is about. That's what the soil is about. The first type of soil is we're not getting it. We completely missed the target. As we will see next week and the week after, we get it, but we're just going about it the wrong way. This one is we just don't get it. Like, work. Okay, besmało Lunes Kadus. Work. Besmało Lunes Kadus. So when you evaluate your life, you're like, I'm doing pretty well. Because you're not doing anything bad. Again, when you do something, if the devil can't make you bad, he makes you good. It makes you think that you're on the right track, even though you have no seed inside of you whatsoever. Even though every seed has been taken away by the birds of this world. You've been consumed by the world. And you don't even know it. You've fallen and you can't get up. I'm going to commercial. I have fallen right here. I try to avoid saying it. Alright, so what do we do? What do we do about this? We got to take time to understand salvation. The seed that fell on the footpath represents those who hear the message about the kingdom and don't understand it. Remember, that's the verse from the Bible. It requires both the brain and the heart to work together simultaneously. Here's the thing. Number one, please listen. Please listen. Please listen. The concept of salvation is not going to fall down like manna, and then you're not going to wake up one day and be like, whoa, salvation, I get it now. Like, you got to work for it. We've become so lazy as Christians. Oh my gosh. We've become so lazy. If we study, and we talked about this recently, as a recent comment from YouTube has shown. Back in the day, I'm going to repeat it. Back in the day, when in the monastery, monks used to live, they would exercise ascetic lifestyle through various things. Number one, they would copy. Like, they'd copy the Word of God. Right? And then they would read it. And then they would memorize it. And then they would hear it. And then they would chant it. Like, this was their way of, like, every single of their senses trying to use it in order to get more connected with Christ. And their attitude was, the more, like, work they were putting in, like, the more the mysteries was being revealed to them. They worked. Like, if you go to our forefathers, if you go to Gadam, they memorize everything. People have memorized the book of Psalms. Right? We have a trouble, like, just something. And then what was next? Like, we have a problem with memorizing the creed. Like what I believe in, the faith. Like, my faith, we have a problem with sitting down and just, okay, don't memorize anything. Read the Bible. Not a problem with that. Instead of studying the Bible, what's the new thing? Watching Christian movie. Huh? Yep. There's nothing, it's not about what is wrong with that. David got so offended. David was like, no, don't ruin my life. It's about working hard. So it's easy. Watching a Christian movie like, what is it? God is Not Dead or something, right? Like War Room. Like, that's interesting movies, right? Like, which is good, like, instead of doing something else, right? My point is, but it's easy. Like, it's the easy thing to do. Sitting down and reading the book of Matthew, that's hard. Reading Andam, that's difficult. So we're avoiding doing the things that are difficult, and we're trying to replace it with watching movies. No, that's not okay.
I'm trying to complement it with watching movies. Hello.
So we have to do both, right? Like, we've got to stop being lazy. We've got to start, like, taking the time. You study in school. Like, think about how hard you work in school, right? In order to pass an exam. Are we studying for salvation? Are we taking the time to really study for salvation? Think about how many nights we've gone without sleeping to study. Are we doing that for the Bible? Like, most of the time we're like, okay, I'm tired, but I will stay up all night and study for my exam, right? So, like, do we have that energy? Do we have that that fight within us to seek salvation? If the answer is no, then we can't say salvation is the most important thing for us. We can't make the same claim if our actions is not reflecting that. Studying the Bible and, like, reading the Bible alone is also not enough. We have to supplement it with our hearts, with our prayer. Remember, it's something that will be revealed from God. The true problem of not understanding salvation, if we're only, like, up here and not down here, right? Like, both of them have to work together. And if we're only stuck up here, the problem is we have a problem with submitting to God. At the end of the day, and some people really have, like, especially men, right? We have a problem with saying, I will submit to you, God. Like that's a problem, right? Like we have this like I'm a man, wow. You know, like we have this like nobody's gonna rule over me. We have this mentality. So we see God as like a moral guidance, whatever. We will say whatever we have to avoid saying I will submit to you. We'll say we love him. We will say we follow him. We will say he's like Christ, whatever. We will never say I submit to you. And that's what Christianity requires. Is for us to say I fully submit to you. Like we have to submit. And it requires a humble heart, right? So when our heart and our brain is working together, we can't be lazy. You can't just be like, okay, I'll pray again, I'll pray again, I'll pray again, and expect something to happen. You gotta pray, read, memorize, write, do everything, and all these combinations are gonna produce the fruits that I hope you're seeking for. Does that make sense? Any questions? It was a long class. That was the last class? Questions? No questions? I don't know how to feel like whenever there's no questions.
I got it. Either means you're teaching good
Or
we're not.
What's the movie on?
Earlier you said, like, sometimes we get pulled by the devil.
Yeah.
But then, like, he pushes us and makes us good, like,
Right.
the other way. How do you know? Like you just, like, living life and you just, like, I'm good because I'm going to church. I'm good with everything. But, like, how do you actually, like, know that you really...
That's a complex question. That's something like, you know, there's no like black and white answer, but that's why you got to reflect on your life, right? So, does your spiritual like journey or your actions reflect your attitude about your spiritual journey? So I would say like if you're like really falling behind your spiritual journey and then your other part of your life is going forward, that is a big question mark. That is a huge question mark. I mean, if we're serious about salvation, these are the things that make us like re-question our career path. Like seriously. Like we don't think about that, right? Like, but like if our job is getting in the way of God, the job has to go. If the job is getting in the way with any, or if whatever we're doing is getting in the way of God, that thing has to go, whatever it may be.
What y'all moving forward?
We're gonna talk more about this in about 2 to 3 weeks. More about this when we're talking about the last half of the song. Yeah.
It's not a question, but
You guys.
How many of you read the new bulletin board?
The what? The new?
Read what?
The newsletter.
Guys, don't lie. They already know already.
I didn't read this one, but
I'm just trying to help you out. If you haven't read it, don't raise your hand. He already knows it. He already knows who opened it.
What it means,
Don't raise your hand.
David mentioned that, but that for exactly what you asked, there is an answer in that bulletin board.
wow.
I'm telling you.
Unless they read it. They read it.
The thing is, he was gonna read it, but he started watching a Christian movie.
You already know. That's what happened.
But anyways, those of you who are not listed or give your emails for the bullet, it's a monthly newsletter that we send for everyone. So
Can you recap it?
Yeah.
So it has it's a newsletter. We call it a bulletin board. It has.
The answer. We're not talking about the answer. He's talking about the answer. Can you answer
You
the
answer the
question?
questions.
You just answered it.
You just say the answer. But what I'm saying is, if you read it, you wouldn't have that question.
I know, but David asked you to.
No, I had that question
more.
before.
Recap what you said.
Yeah. No.
Just what was on the bulletin board specifically.
So it's about like the first one, especially the education part, is like, are you fasting from fasting?
You gonna have to.
So if you read it, so this is the same thing, because when we fast, we think like you were saying, we're good, right? Fasting is like, I'm content. I fast and do these things, and you would even further go like say like mentioning that like in a way prideful way that for others, or mentioning it, right? So that would kind of consume you and just only focus on the actions, but not the grace that you get from it. And also you would focus that, okay, I'm doing fine because I'm just fasting. Fasting is not the ultimate end goal of spirituality, right? So working out is not the end goal. The result of the working out is the end goal, right? But if you're only focusing about fasting and think like I'm done of fasting or not, or recognizing that just fasting is a means of something that comes later, right? And not being content or just deep down in your heart prideful that I'm fasting, not like that way, but yes, I'm fasting, but I need to do more, right? So same way you were saying like, okay, I'm good in life, right? But is that the ultimate goal of spirituality, right? And St. Paul says that whatever good or bad that I did, I laid my back and then I just straight forward, right? I'll continue. So in any spiritual activity that you think you achieved, that's not the end goal. There is more, right? You have to strive to do more. So.
I didn't read that. I was just asking for people who did not.
What was the next article about?
You know what he said. You know, it's continuing based on what he said.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Okay, so like I'm gonna bring it back to like the salvation being like the most important concept, and like do your actions like reflect that.
Okay.
Like at some point, like I want to get to that point where like yes, like I'm consistently praying, I'm consistent, like I'm teaching, I'm doing well with my teaching, and like I'm listening to sermons, I'm coming to church every day, but like I feel like isn't that like there's a point where like I get used to this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like that's not supposed to happen in Christianity. Like I'm supposed to be like this stuff's supposed to be hard. But when it gets to the point where like I'm praying praying every morning and night, like it's coming like not like easy, but like it's just like a routinely thing. Like I'm like this stuff, like I'm not eating the certain foods like I'm not supposed to eat like during tongue, like.
Right, and I think that's a problem for a lot of us, right? Like that's been around like church or whatever, like you know, like you like check, and then you hit like that spot where you're like, okay, like what's next? This is, I think, the same thing that that man who's struggling with went up to Christ and was like, okay, like what do I need to do in order to get the kingdom of heaven? I'm like, pray. I am praying, fast. I am fasting. I'm doing this, and he was like, okay. And he was a rich man, like he was rich, right? So he said, what did Christ tell him? Sell everything you have and give it to the poor. He's like, ooh, child. I'll go back to prayer and fasting. We will talk about this more, I think, what is it, next week or the week after? We all have that one thing where we're like, okay, God, I'm a Christian, but don't touch that. Yeah. Like we have a box that we've closed. we have a box like that we are not allowing God to touch, right? Like we have a room. We're gonna talk about that. Like God, I'll give you my life. I'll do whatever you want, whatever, anytime, anything. But this is not for you. The challenge is, let's open that up. And I promise you, the minute you open it up, you're gonna find more boxes. Like a big box and a smaller box and a smaller box and a smaller box. And you spend your entire life trying to unlock every one of them. And we're going to talk more about that next week, but that is a very, very, very good question. And that's the thorns. That's exactly what the thorn is, right? Like, you believe in Christ, you're serious about it. One thing that's holding you back. How are you going to give up guest classes?
Chocolate chip cookie.
That's not getting me. That's getting me close. God, that's why we're making cookies.
Is that fasting in chocolate chip?
Yeah, they are. They are.
It's not about
God is good, isn't he?
God is good.